Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Man, it's been a while since the last time that I filmed a video and I feel very out of practice. I'm like, how do I speak? Today we are going to be doing a first impression on a brand new foundation, something that I'm actually very curious about and very excited to try. We are going to be trying the new Fenty powder foundation. This is going to be very, very interesting because since I do have a drier skin type, powder just doesn't always mesh super well with my skin. It can often make my dry skin look drier, cakier, a lot worse. So I do have to be very, very careful when I do apply powder onto my skin. And I have a very select few powders that I actually like because, like I said, most powders just don't work for me. So I thought it would be really interesting to try a powder foundation because I have only ever tried one other powder foundation in my makeup lifetime, and that is the original Bare Minerals loose powder foundation. I'm very interested in a couple things. First, I want to see how it applies and how much coverage it actually gives. I'm also interested to see how it feels on the face. And for whatever reason, I imagine powder foundation just feels so heavy on the skin. So we're also going to test that theory as well. I hope you guys are excited to go on this powder foundation journey with me. I hope that you enjoyed today's first impression. Let me know in the comments if you've tried this and what your thoughts are. And also let me know your skin type with your kind of like review. And if you have any other powder foundations that you really love, that you're like a big fan of, let me know down below as well. Okay, so I think the first thing we're gonna do, as usual, is kind of just break down the product itself. So this is what the powder foundation looks like. It comes in this nice little compact. You have, of course, the foundation on the inside, a nice mirror, and then you have a second mirror with a sponge in the bottom half of the compact. What I do really like about the idea of a powder foundation is that it really does make touching up throughout the day a lot easier. I mean, touching up your liquid foundation throughout the day, I feel like is kind of a pain in the ass. Like, who wants to carry around a bottle of liquid foundation plus a brush? Whereas with something like this, you have everything you need in this little compact. It's not going to potentially leak all over your bag, and it's just definitely a lot more convenient. So the foundation is $47 Canadian. There are 50 shades in this foundation range. I don't even think a powder foundation range with this amount of shades even exists. I think that is absolutely amazing, but also expected. It is Fenty Beauty, of course. They are always incredibly inclusive with their shade range, and they always do a really great job with that. The foundation is described as a light as air powder foundation that gives you a light to full coverage with a soft matte finish. The powder delivers a non-cakey blurred finish with no flashback. It also says that it doesn't settle into fine lines, it doesn't clog the pores, it's also sweat, humidity, and crease resistant, which is something that we will absolutely be testing, especially with masks. I'm very interested to see if it's going to transfer completely off of my mask, or if it's not, we'll see. So on the product page, it says that before applying, be sure to moisturize skin with Fenty Skin Hydra Visor Invisible Moisturizer. Now, obviously, you can use any moisturizer that you have. This is a Fenty product, so they're obviously going to suggest using a Fenty moisturizer. And I would typically just use my normal moisturizer, but I actually have the Fenty moisturizer here that I very recently got in PR. I haven't tried any of the Fenty skin products, so I don't really know what to expect here, but this is what the Hydra Visor moisturizer looks like. It actually comes in two separate parts. You have the cartridge with the product and then the little actual component, and I believe that you just purchase the cartridge when you run out of it so that you're not constantly buying new outer packaging. Pop this in here like this, and then you twist the bottom over here and it pops up so that you can pump it out. So I took a couple pumps of the moisturizer. Has a slight fragrance to it. I like the texture of this. It actually feels creamy and moisturizing, but not too thick. And I'm gonna put a pretty nice layer of this all over my face. I do really wanna be sure that my skin is properly moisturized before putting on this foundation. I really want to set myself up for success here. It says after moisturizing, apply your favorite primer and let set for best results. I am not going to apply a primer. I'm going to stick with just the moisturizer. I'm worried that if I try a certain primer, it's going to affect the wear of the foundation. And with foundation first impressions, I always like to keep it as simple as possible with the prep so that I know if something goes wrong, it's not because of my prep, but it's because of the product itself. Or if it goes right, I also know that it's because of the product itself. So we are just going to leave it at the moisturizer, but I am going to take the advice that it says and kind of just let it sink in for a little bit, because I worry that since my skin does feel a little bit tacky with the moisturizer, that the powder is gonna attach weirdly. I don't know. So I'm just gonna kind of let that sit for about a minute before I go in to apply. So there are 3 different ways to apply this product depending on the type of coverage that you want. For a light coverage finish, they suggest using the Fenty Beauty powder brush, which basically kind of looks something like this, just like a really fluffy powder brush. And so a brush that does have this type of just fluffiness is not going to apply the powder as densely, so you will get a lighter coverage effect. Then of course you could use a sponge. The compact does include one. This is a really just simple, basic makeup sponge, nothing crazy. I would assume that this does give more coverage because you are more so packing or pressing the product into your skin and you're not just buffing it. And then for a medium to full coverage, they do suggest using a kabuki brush. And a kabuki brush is basically just like a really, really densely packed brush. And that's going to really pack it on. So for today, I'm going to use the sponge because that's what it comes with. And I'm really interested to see what kind of effect I can get with something as simple as this. So now moving on to the shades that I have here, I do have 3 shades. They are quite similar to one another, just kind of slightly different undertones. I have 190, which is actually my shade in their liquid foundation. So I think this is probably going to be the one that I'm gonna go with. Ooh, I'm excited. I'm gonna take the sponge and just kind of pick up product by swiping. And that's what it looks like after you swipe. And I was watching an application video of this product. They suggested just kind of like swiping it and blend it like as you would almost a liquid foundation. Ooh. Okay, that's so cool. Immediately, I definitely feel like that just gave my skin a blurred effect. I put it on my cheek area right over here, which is definitely where I have the most visible pores, and that just completely like softened them pretty much immediately. So I swiped on that side, and I did actually like the way that applied. It seemed to apply pretty evenly. And here I'm gonna pat and see kind of what method I prefer. Definitely the swiping. It gives much more of like an even coverage. So I'm having some mixed feelings here because I'm very surprised with how this is looking and feeling, but I'm also not 1000% loving what I'm seeing, at least on my initial reaction. I am really surprised with the way that this feels on my skin. I really imagine this being very, very heavy and very uncomfortable, but it feels pretty much like nothing. It almost feels even less heavy than a liquid foundation. It also doesn't feel super dry on my skin. That probably has to do with the moisturizer that I applied right before applying this. I definitely think that is definitely very key. And I also think because I applied that moisturizer, my skin definitely has a nice healthy glow to it. It's not overly matte, which is something else that I was a little bit concerned about because I don't like a chalky matte finish to my skin. I like there to be a little bit of life here, and this finish is kind of exactly what I like. It's very natural, it's not too glowy, it's not too matte, it just looks like skin. As far as the way this looks, it's better than I expected, but it's also not my favorite. I do feel like in certain areas, it really smoothed out my skin and made it look pretty flawless, but then in other areas where I have more texture, like around here and also on my chin, it definitely exaggerated those areas. So what I actually was wondering was, since I'm putting powder on, am I able to put on liquid concealer on top of this? Because typically layering liquids on top of powders is a bit of a no-no because it doesn't normally mesh very well together and it'll start to pill and kind of lift. And so I don't know what to do. I'm gonna be your guinea pig today though, and I'm gonna try out that liquid concealer and see what happens. So I am going to take my Rare Beauty Concealer in 210N and let's see how this applies on top. Now I'm not going to completely set myself up for disaster, and I'm not going to apply this, you know, on like my actual face area because I don't think that's gonna end up well, but I am gonna apply it underneath my eyes and kind of just see how that works, even though I don't have that powder right in that area, but it does overlap on my cheeks. Typically when I apply my concealer, I like to bring the excess down sides of my nose a little bit just to add some brightness there. So I'm just gonna do the same as I would normally do. That actually applied totally fine. There's no buildup of product, there's no cakiness, there's no lifting. It looks totally smooth and as it normally does. I do think that if you are going to layer liquids on top of powders, the best thing to do is just apply a very small amount and not overdo it, because I think that's when things could get a little bit questionable. But with that small amount of concealer, I really think it just worked fine. So the next test is to apply my blush and bronzer and to see how it applies. I don't think there's gonna be any issues, especially because it is a powder on my face. I would assume that these are gonna apply just extra smooth because typically the only issues that I have with application when it comes to like bronzer and blush is when my foundation is too sticky, and that's when things kind of stick in weird areas. But because we used a powder, I'm sure things are gonna apply really nicely. So that's my prediction. So I'm just gonna go in with my NARS Laguna and just bronze as I normally would. And then for my blush, I'm gonna go into my Do We Know Her blush from Patrick Ta, but just the powder one. Again, because this is a powder foundation, I would definitely not recommend going in with creams because like I said, you're just kind of playing with fire. Layering creams on top of powders just sometimes doesn't work, and you may get a not great reaction on your face. The bronzer and blush, by the way, applied perfectly. No issues at all. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go off camera, finish off the rest of my makeup, and I'll be back to give you guys my final first impressions for the first application. Hello, I'm back. I wanted to put the lip on camera because this is another new Fenty product. It's the new Fenty creams. These are amazing. Huge Jamie stamp of approval on these guys. They're so good. They're definitely a lot more pigmented than the original Fenty gloss bombs. I mean, obviously, as the name suggests, they're a little bit creamier, but they're still super lightweight, very glossy, and the shades that they came out with are beautiful. I actually did a whole swatch video on Instagram swatching all of the shades. So if you want to see what all the shades look like on me, then I'll link my Instagram down below and you can check it out. But today I'm going to be going in with Honey Waffles, which is an amazing, very warm toned, like honey nude. Kind of goes nicely with my sweatshirt that I'm wearing today. So now let's talk about my first impressions on this foundation because I'm honestly a little bit mixed up. I'm not really exactly sure 100% how I feel about it just yet because there's some areas of my face where I actually really love the way it looks, specifically right here. I feel like my skin looks really nice and smooth, but then there are other areas of my face, the areas that I do have more texture, like I mentioned, such as over here, on my chin, even on my nose, where the foundation is absolutely accentuating it. And within those areas, the foundation is also just looking a little bit blotchy, which I don't love. For somebody like me, I do feel like a product like this may be better suited to use more so as a setting powder and not so much as a standalone foundation, especially if you do have a lot of texture on your skin. I don't know if this would be completely ideal. At least that's my experience so far, because it has only been like 30 minutes. The very last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to spray my face with a little bit of MAC Fix Plus because MAC Fix Plus is really known to get rid of that powdery look, and I'm curious to see how that's going to perform on a full-on powder foundation. I'm just putting like a thin layer of this on. I'm not drenching my skin in it. That's actually kind of crazy. That immediately settled the foundation, made it look a lot less powdery. All right, guys, so that is it for like my first impression. So I'm going to just let this marinate on my face for the rest of the day, and I'll give you maybe 1 or 2 other check-ins and then my final thoughts at the end. Right now it's around noon, and I'm gonna be wearing this all the way to the evening. So you'll get a good, solid wear test out of this. So I will see you guys then. So we are 3 hours in already. It's already 3 p.m. I'm just about to go grocery shopping. So we're gonna be putting this to the mask test and to see how it performs. But before I do that, I just wanna say, it's improving. I don't even know how this is possible, but I actually like this so much more than when I first applied it. Like, I feel like, especially on camera, my skin looks so smooth. It started off being a little bit questionable, but now it's just, I don't know, going in a more positive direction. So we'll see if that continues. Like I said, it's only been 3 hours. You still got a long way to go, but let's see how it holds up with the mask. And I'll show you guys the transfer when I get back in the car. I'm actually pretty shook. There's like no foundation on the inside of my mask except for the little nose part. That's actually pretty good. Okay guys, so it is 9 p.m. I've been wearing this foundation for 9 hours. I'm ready to take it off. Right now, by the way, I'm using a ring light. So this is not natural light, but I never use a filter on my videos. So what you're seeing on my face is exactly what you get. And I gotta say, my mind is kind of blown because this foundation review went in a completely different direction than I expected. My skin actually kind of looks really, really good, and I don't know how this is possible. So let me first give you a close-up of what my skin looks like. So here's my cheek area. It totally looks smooth all the way through here. Like there's no blotchiness. It wore beautifully, like nothing rubbed off. My skin also feels really nice and soft and like not sticky or anything. Like, you know, after a day of wearing liquid foundation, like your skin can feel a little bit like sticky. There's none of that, which I actually really, really like. My nose, which is the only part of my face that foundation actually rubbed off on, and that's from my mask. So you can see there's like kind of no foundation all in this area. That's again from my mask. This is where I have a lot of texture. That was one area where I felt like it was pretty accentuated. It's a lot worse actually in person than on camera. And then we have my chin, which is typically pretty dry, but it looks not bad. So while I expected that my skin would look cracked and dry and really, really crepey and just unflattering by the end of the day, it is instead the complete opposite. You see this shine that I have on my face, this glow? What is going on? And if you remember, I did not apply any primer or glowy product on my skin. I'm not even wearing a highlighter today. I'm just wearing moisturizer. So this is purely from the foundation and my skin, which is kind of shocking since this is a powder. Needless to say, this entire foundation first impression has been a bit of a roller coaster for me because when I first applied this, I didn't think that it would go in a positive direction. I thought that it did look a little bit heavy. I also found that it really accentuated the texture on my skin, but I found that as the day went on, and especially after I applied that Matte Fix Plus, as you saw in my first check-in, I was surprised with how skin-like my skin was looking and how it was actually looking better and not looking drier as the day progressed. All I gotta say is how the turntables. So as far as my final thoughts on this product goes, I mean, this was pretty much the first time that I applied a powder foundation in recent memory, and I have pretty much no experience with this category of foundation, and so I do feel like I need to try this out more and in different ways. I want to try different application methods. I did just use the sponge that it came with, and I want to try and use different types of brushes and see what happens. And I kind of have a feeling that I would almost like it better. Maybe it would not accentuate my dryness as much because it's applied with a fluffier brush. I don't know. I need to find out. And I also want to use this even just as a setting powder because I just love the way it smoothed and blurred my skin. I feel like it did a really good job of that. So I think as a setting powder too, this could be really, really beautiful. Based off of my experience, I don't think that this should be a product that dry skin people should be afraid of. Perhaps if you have very, very dry and textured skin, you may want to stay away from this, but if you have mildly dry textured skin, it's pretty good. I do think though that people with oily and normal skin wouldn't have a problem with this. But of course, as with any product, it's all about personal preference. So these are just my opinions. Take them for what you will. One last thing before I take my makeup off. A lot of the times by the end of the day, when I use a liquid foundation, my smile lines are very much accentuated, and I was just like staring at them and I realized that they actually weren't for the first time. I'm so impressed. I can't believe this. So those are my final thoughts after a full day wear of the Fenty Soft Matte Powder Foundation. It was really fun to try a completely new foundation category that I never tried before. I'm really excited to continue to play with it, and I will let you guys know more of my thoughts perhaps at the end of the month. In the meantime, I would love to hear what you guys have to say if you have tried the product down in the comments, and let me know your thoughts on powder foundations in general. Like, are you familiar with them? If you are, what are some of your favorites? What are your thoughts? Just let me know everything down below. Hit the thumbs up button if you did enjoy today's video, and subscribe if you want to join the fam, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.